So The White Lotus is an absolutely extraordinary series and is now an award-winning show as well, with some really thought-provoking moments. I did think that it was going to have a bigger build-up and the final episode was going to have a massive crescendo, a little bit like Severance. But that being said, this entire series, there was so much brilliant social commentary and such excellent dialogue, which HBO is absolutely renowned for. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Lifestyle Critic. I hope you're having a brilliant day. So in this video, we are going to be doing a review and recap of the first season of The White Lotus, which is a true unnerving and uncomfortable look at the ultra wealthy on vacation, and it follows very different types of groups at very different points in their lives. And it does start off as a little bit of a satire, but then evolves into a true comedy drama and does have a bit of an undercurrent of racial inequality throughout this, and this aspect really does come to the forefront by the end of this season. I thought that Armand was absolutely brilliant as the manager of this particular White Lotus resort, and he really has perfected the ability of hiding behind a smile, and so many jobs require this, and so many life aspects require this as well. For example, being with family members that you don't really like, being with colleagues that you don't really like as well. So this aspect, I do actually feel like is really relatable for a lot of characters, and I thought it was really, really hilarious and also a little bit tragic. By the end of this season, he was just so over it. He just couldn't be bothered to hide behind a smile anymore. And he was also a recovering drug addict, but the pressure just got way too much for him in terms of all of the craziness, in terms of dealing with all of these ultra rich crazy people's problems. And this just got too much for him, that when he did see drugs coming into his vicinity, he just couldn't help but giving into his addiction. So this is also another aspect that I do actually feel like makes the Armand character really, really endearing. And in the final episode, he really does want to hurt the person that has been hurting him the most. But then I do actually feel like it's a little bit Shakespearean in terms of his desire to really hurt the Shane character ended up hurting him in the most tragic way possible. And it was just so brutal what happens to the Armand character at the end of this show. And it really does show, I feel like, from a number of different characters' perspectives actually, that all actions do have consequences. So I feel like that perspective is really brilliantly showcased in The White Lotus. Let's now look at his enemy, which is the Shane character, who I absolutely loved actually. I mean, you are made to hate this character as he is just so obnoxious and does epitomize the ultra wealthy people so brilliantly. But I feel like his reactions to stuff was really, really good. His one line was absolutely brilliant. A little bit cartoonish, but I have to say Shane was absolutely hilarious and just brought so much to the show. And he truly was the arch nemesis to Armand. And I do actually think, even though, like I said, you're not made to like the Shane character, I do think his portrayal is really realistic in terms of ultra wealthy people just being so obnoxious, being so self-centered, and just being so aloof from what their actions are causing to other people. And in some senses, I do actually feel like at the start of this season especially, Shane is a little bit relatable in terms of everybody wanting to get their money's worth, especially if you're not getting what you're paid for and what you deserve, which is this room upgrade that you have paid a lot more money for, but the hotel manager is just being really difficult and not giving this to you even though it was their mistake. So from that perspective, you can see where Shane is coming from, but he just did not drop it, did he? And it really did impact his honeymoon and his relationship as well. Now let's talk about Rachel. I feel like Alexandra Daddario did such a good job with this character. Absolutely love the sequence where she is talking to the other rich mother, and it starts off by being a really pleasant conversation, and then the rich woman finds out that actually this is the person that wrote an article about her, which didn't make her look the best. So I absolutely love that, as it's a classic HBO moment where the dialogue is just written so well, and the scene starts off as one thing and then quite literally becomes something else, and you could just feel all the awkwardness, which was just so magnificent. And like I said, this character was really, really good. She was written in a way that, you know, she finds herself being really lost in a relationship, which again is another thing that people can really relate to. And she is one of the few characters that isn't actually a super rich person, and she definitely did pluck up the courage and confidence to have that confrontation with Shane, where she was like, look, I don't really want to be in this relationship anymore. And Shane's reaction in that situation was just so true to his character. And I wonder if Rachel's conversation with Belinda would have made her stay on this path, or if the death of Armand was just too much to bear and the only option that she felt like she could do is running back to Shane. So like I said, the Rachel character was actually really, really interesting. I really, really like the character of Mark, played by Steve Zahn. I feel like Steve Zahn really doesn't get the credit that he deserves, as he is such a good actor, and I thought he was really, really good in this series, as he has obviously been dominated by his wife, as he doesn't necessarily come from the same level of wealth or success, and as a result of this, it feels as if his wife has really pushed him down. At the same time, you can see it from her perspective, as she is just trying so hard to be a really successful businesswoman and a mother at the same time. So I feel like, you can see it from both people's perspectives, but Steve Zahn just brings so much to this character, and I absolutely loved it how he was just playing it out when he found out exactly what happened in terms of his dad having a secret double life that he didn't even know about, and now his dad has passed away. He can't even talk to him about it, so he literally is just spiraling out of control. I wish we would have seen a little bit more of that, as it was really, really interesting. And also the fact that he inadvertently got Armand to be interested in him. I just feel like I said, the Mark character was absolutely hilarious and brilliant in this series. Quinn's journey was really, really interesting, as at first he is a typical young guy who is just obsessed with digital technology and just wants to escape into this and doesn't really want to be in the real world. However, as this storyline progresses, it couldn't be further from the truth, as he then loves the outdoors world and loves the freedom that this brings and doesn't even want to have anything to do with digital technology by the end of it, and then even escapes his family by the end of it, as he doesn't want to have a stale life as what he deems it to be in the city and just wants to be fully free in the sea. So I feel like Quinn actually did have a bit of a successful ending from all of the characters in this series. I wish we would have seen a little bit more from Sydney Sweeney in this series. I feel like she was only really a supporting character to Paula, who was so much more interesting and so much more layered, and actually is really, really fascinating. So at first, and you get to see this at the start of this series as well as at the end of the series, as she definitely feels like an outsider within this family dynamic, both from an ethnicity point of view as well as from a wealth point of view, and then she betrays this family in the worst possible way. So I think that's a really interesting bit of social commentary in terms of, somebody from the outside, you've invited them into your family and then they betray you in the worst possible way. So it really is a great interesting lesson in terms of being really careful about who you let into your life, as she gave Kai awful advice in terms of stealing from this family, even though in her head she was able to give logic and justify her actions, even though what she was doing was so bad, and it resulted in Kai losing even more than what he had already lost, which I feel like is also a little bit Shakespearean, as Paula came in trying to help him but ended up cursing him even more. I wish you would have been able to see that. Apparently the reason that we didn't get to see Kai or the lady that got pregnant at the start of this series again was due to COVID, but it would have been so impactful to see all of this playing out. But in some ways I feel like other people have said that it's also a bit of social commentary to show how insignificant those characters were, and then to just focus on the wealthy characters does have its own commentary as well, which I do think is really, really fascinating. But nonetheless, I would have loved to have seen what would have happened next with Kai, and then you would have really also felt the burden on Paula as well. And last but not least, we have Jennifer Coolidge, who was absolutely phenomenal. She is absolutely excellent in everything that she does, but I have to say with Tanya, she was absolutely brilliant. Clearly a woman that needs to go to therapy and deal with a lot of things, but in particular, I absolutely love the sequence which Shane called a memorial service on a boat where he is actually trying to have a romantic dinner. I feel like Armand really did stick the knife into his heart at that point. But anyway, Tanya's reaction on the boat was just so powerful. And then Shane's reaction to this, I just feel like, from a HBO point of view, they just wrote that scene to perfection. And I just feel like Tanya is such an interesting character, as again, a lot of people can relate to the fact of just going on holiday to escape your problems. But in reality, this can't really happen, as your problems travel with you. And you can really see this with Tanya, as she is just dealing with so many mental difficulties, and you just get to see it playing out in such a catastrophic way. And also it's really, really interesting how she was going to help Belinda setting up a business, and how she really wants to help someone, but then gets very distracted with her own life, which then led Belinda in the lurch a little bit. But also, you could also say that from Belinda's point of view, she latched onto the fact that Tanya, who is a bit of a struggling woman, is going to help her financially, and then you didn't want to let that go. And I guess if she does have ambitions and dreams to create a spa, maybe she can try to get finance in another way. But I do feel like the Tanya character was just so brilliantly portrayed by Jennifer Coolidge. Really, really interesting how at first this White Lotus series was just going to be a limited series, but after the success and the award-winning success, it's now going to be having a season 2 in Sicily, where we're going to see Jennifer Coolidge's character coming back, which is going to be absolutely brilliant. But I absolutely loved season 1. I thought the writing was so good. I feel like the character portrayals were so good, and just the lessons that you can learn from the White Lotus is so good. And so for all of those reasons, I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10. Now I'd love to hear what you thought of the first season of White Lotus, so please let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.